The Sinister Genius of Leopold and Loeb, a chilling tale of intellectual arrogance. The murder of 14-year-old Bobby Franks by Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb in 1924 is one of the most shocking crimes in American history. This chilling tale of two brilliant yet morally depraved young men stands as a stark reminder of how intellectual arrogance and a lack of empathy can lead to devastating consequences. Their crime, described as the crime of the century, was not motivated by greed or revenge, but by a twisted desire to prove their superiority and test their self-proclaimed brilliance. Nathan Leopold was a child prodigy with an IQ of 210 and a photographic memory. By the age of 18, he had graduated from the University of Chicago and was preparing to attend Harvard Law School. Fluent in multiple languages and an ornithologist of note, Leopold viewed himself as intellectually superior to almost everyone around him. But beneath his genius lay a darker side. Leopold was obsessed with the philosophies of Friedrich Nietzsche, particularly the concept of the Übermensch, or Superman. He interpreted Nietzsche's ideas as a justification for rejecting conventional morality, believing that extraordinary individuals like himself were exempt from societal rules. Richard Loeb was equally brilliant, but in a different way. The youngest graduate in the history of the University of Michigan, at just 17, Loeb was charming, sociable, and outwardly affable. However, he lacked the academic discipline of Leopold, preferring leisure and excitement to intellectual rigor. Loeb was fascinated with crime and often fantasized about committing the perfect one. Unlike Leopold, his motivations were less philosophical and more about thrill-seeking and exerting control over others. Together, Leopold and Loeb formed a toxic partnership where their combined arrogance and detachment from morality set the stage for a horrifying act. Leopold and Loeb decided to commit a murder simply to prove they could. They wanted to demonstrate their intellectual superiority by orchestrating a crime so perfect that it would be impossible to solve. They meticulously planned every detail, from the victim to the disposal of the body. Their choice of victim was chillingly impersonal. They selected Bobby Franks, Loeb's 14-year-old second cousin and neighbor, simply because he was young, vulnerable, and convenient. To ensure their crime went undetected, they devised an elaborate ransom scheme, intending to send misleading letters to Bobby's family to create the illusion of a kidnapping. On May 21, 1924, Leopold and Loeb put their plan into action. They lured Bobby Franks into a rental car under the pretense of giving him a ride home. Once inside, Loeb struck Bobby on the head with a chisel and suffocated him to death. The killing was brutal, quick, and devoid of any remorse. After murdering Bobby, they stuffed his body into a culvert near Wolf Lake in Hammond, Indiana, pouring hydrochloric acid on his face and genitals in an attempt to obscure his identity. They then mailed the ransom note to Bobby's family, believing they had left no clues behind. Despite their meticulous planning, Leopold and Loeb made several critical errors. The most damning was the discovery of Leopold's glasses near the crime scene. The glasses had a unique hinge that could be traced back to their owner, providing a direct link to Leopold. When confronted, Leopold initially claimed he had lost the glasses during a bird-watching trip. However, under intense questioning, both he and Loeb eventually confessed. Their confessions were chilling in their lack of remorse, with Leopold even describing the murder as an intellectual exercise. The trial of Leopold and Loeb became a media sensation, drawing national attention not only for the heinous nature of the crime, but also for its philosophical implications. The defense team, led by the legendary attorney Clarence Darrow, faced an uphill battle. The evidence against Leopold and Loeb was overwhelming, and their confessions left little room for doubt. Darrow's strategy was not to argue their innocence, but to save them from the death penalty. He delivered a powerful 12-hour closing argument, arguing that the boys were products of their environment and upbringing. He painted them as tragic figures corrupted by their wealth, privilege, and the dangerous allure of Nietzschean philosophy. Darrow's impassioned plea worked. On September 10, 1924, Leopold and Loeb were sentenced to life imprisonment for murder and an additional 99 years for kidnapping, avoiding execution. Loeb's life behind bars was short. In 1936, he was murdered by a fellow inmate who claimed self-defense after Loeb allegedly made sexual advances toward him. His death marked a violent and inglorious end to a life that had begun with so much privilege and potential. Leopold, in contrast, lived for decades after the crime. While in prison, he sought to rehabilitate his image. He organized educational programs for inmates, volunteered for medical experiments during World War II, and even authored an autobiography titled Life Plus 99 Years. In 1958, Leopold was released on parole, having served 33 years of his sentence. He moved to Puerto Rico, where he lived a quiet life, working as a hospital technician and engaging in community service until his death in 1971. The case of Leopold and Loeb continues to fascinate and disturb, raising profound questions about morality, privilege, and the nature of evil. Their crime is often cited in discussions about the influence of philosophy on behavior, the dangers of intellectual arrogance, and the psychological impact of wealth and entitlement. The pair's invocation of Nietzsche's Übermensch has sparked debates about the misinterpretation of philosophy. Scholars argue that Leopold and Loeb twisted Nietzsche's ideas to justify their actions, ignoring the ethical complexities of his writings. The case inspired numerous works of art, literature, and film. Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, 1948, and the play Never the Sinner, 1985, are among the many retellings of their story, exploring the psychological and moral dimensions of their crime. The tale of Leopold and Loeb is a cautionary one, illustrating the dark side of intellect divorced from empathy. It serves as a reminder that intelligence without morality can be as destructive as ignorance. Their story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, privilege, and the capacity for evil. Nearly a century later, the sinister genius of Leopold and Loeb continues to haunt the public imagination. A chilling example of what happens when brilliance turns to arrogance and morality gives way to hubris.